Thank you, Stanford webcam participants. We are in the session Agile for Agents, and by agents, everyone probably knows, but I mean AI agents, large language models like ChatGPT and Claude and various things like that. Let's go to the next thing. We can talk about me a little bit. You can see both the little me right here and the larger picture right there. My name is Luke McCormick. You can get me at SellEar on Drupal.org and lots of other places. Longtime builder of websites, worked for various large companies and small companies. In this particular session, usually the fact that I have an MBA doesn't come into play at all. But I'm actually going to use some of those MBA techniques in this. We're going to talk about management in like management techniques that you can use for keeping AI models and coding agents in line. Those are the QR codes for my LinkedIn and D.O thing. And with that, let's get started. I'll give you a little overview about how the talk's going to work. I'm going to talk for about half the time, kind of going through my AI journey, and you'll see the relevance of that when we get into it, because I will establish the problems that I encountered and faced, and then show you some of the solutions that I've been developing. One of them, at least, is very well debugged, and I'll encourage you to actually use it. I've been using it in production in various ways for a little while now. And the other's more work in progress that you'll get to see. So I'm going to go through this story with the slides for about half the time, if I time it right. And then I'll give you a demo of the thing that I built. We'll be talking towards the technologies that are in the demo as we get through it, so you'll understand some of it. We'll do the demo, and then if there's time, we'll take some questions. If you have questions along the way, type them in the chat, and Aaron will, I believe, consolidate them and be prepared to sort of look at them. I can't see the chat as it happens, or anybody like frantically waving at me. So unless somebody jumps in with the audio, I'll just proceed as if everything's good. All right. So my experience with AI started in like the fall of 2023, I guess, when everyone else discovered. I mean, around that time is when people started to get excited about ChatGPT, and I particularly liked Dolly, which was the image generator attached to ChatGPT, and I've gotten really into creating images with Dolly, which, according to my daughter, makes me profoundly uncool. But I was already there, so you got to go with what you got. Anyway, I just wanted to show that I had dived in pretty heavily with the AI-generated images, as you'll see, and was using, was happily using ChatGPT for that purpose. And I started to, keep a ChatGPT window around. So one day I was at work. I was working a Drupal site, and I have the date from the logs that ChatGPT asks, and I just cleared my Drupal caches for like the millionth time. And as long as I've been doing Drupal things and I've been clearing caches like we all do, I wondered what the heck are these caches? What am I doing when I clear them? Am I doing anything? Surely there must be a module that would tell me, uh, you know, what's in the caches, and do I need to clear them even, or give me some information. So I asked ChatGPT if there's such a module, and to my surprise and disappointment, it came back, no, there actually isn't such a module. Yeah, it happens. So I was like, maybe someday, I'll get it around. What if? How would I write a module? What's involved with that? I mean, I don't know how to write a module, but just specifically for caches, I was wondering. So I asked if I was to sit down and try to write a module, a Drupal module to query the cache size, how would I do that? And to my surprise, the screen started filling up with what I recognized as, Drupal code. And, not really running it, but it looked pretty legit. So I asked it to, can you generate this as a zip file? And it did that right away. And it generated a zip file. I dropped it into the DDev Drupal site that I'd run on my desktop, and it worked out of the box. So that was this huge revelation. It's like, oh, holy cow! And AI assistants writing code is like, obviously we all know that now, right? But that was an astonishing thing at the time. I figured there would be a painful process to get it, and it just spit out a zip file. So I started to look into the various tools that were available. Like right around that time, mid 2024, 2025. I might have lost a year. Anyway, uh, the things like, Cursor was the one that I started using and still kind of prefer. Copilot had been around for a while. And then there's things like Zed and poor Windsurf. If you don't know what Windsurf is or what happened to it, look it up on the net. They're a lot like Cursor, but they ran into some business troubles, I would say. All right. So that all led to, I got more and more into these things. So last year at about this time, I did a session at the camp we're at now, at Stanford Web Camp. And this was kind of my coming out party. I ran through how these work, and what I knew about them at the time. You can see the link to last year's session, and there's a YouTube video. And if you want to reflect on how I did last year, you can take a look at that. So once I did this, I took it on the road. I did similar sessions at Bad Camp and at the Pacific Northwest Drupal Summit, and they went over well. We're doing, we had an inception thing with my, I guess I gotta point that way, my video overlay of a screenshot of my video overlay from last year at Bad Camp. So going through these things, as I think we've all experienced, it can be pretty overwhelming, right? Like you've got all these tools, and it's funny. I thought, were there misspellings in here? Like, oh yeah, up here. I don't know if my monitor cursor is showing in the screen share, but for a while, Dolly had a lot of trouble actually spelling things, although it's gotten much more accurate about that kind of thing these days. But I started using these tools, and they're kind of fun. And so what that resulted in is I kept being encouraged to try like more and more dramatic things. And this is a visualization of the madness I experienced of trying to do all sorts of things. Uh, these are all real projects. They're all on my GitHub, which is sellear at GitHub. Actually don't have a link to it in the slide, so I'll have to write that down later. But there are all sorts of interesting things that I was able to do, things that I wouldn't have thought of before. I wrote 2 working iOS apps. I wrote 2 different systems that display as themes in Backdrop CMS, for those who are familiar with that. Themes that were designed for WordPress, which, we'll get to that a little bit later. That can be, that was kind of madness. And for Drupal 7, I came up with a system that works pretty reliably for Drupal 7. You can basically pop any Drupal 7 theme into Backdrop, and in most cases, you get results out of it. So these were all, very promising things, but they all were a little scaled back. Actually, the timeline's a little fussy because I hadn't yet done WordPress to Backdrop. That's coming up a little bit later in the story, as you'll soon see. So then, in November of 2025, Anthropic had a promotion where everybody that had a Claude Pro account, a $20 a month Claude Pro account, which I did, was given a $250 credit to just like do a bunch of stuff. But it was time limited. It was, you had to use it within, I think it was like 10 days from when they announced it. It was over Thanksgiving. So it was at the end of November. So I got my $250 credit. And then I thought about like, what would I do? Like I want to try to spend it all, or at least spend as much as I could. So whereas up till this point, I'd been, constantly running out of tokens and, time limits and things like that with my Claude Pro account, and waiting 5 hours for it to reset, or sometimes for the end of the week for it to reset. I sat down, I was like, what's the thing that I could do that, would chew up as much time and try to do a really dramatic result. So I went back to that project of trying to get WordPress themes to work in Drupal. And the way I did that was various plans of actually running WordPress code inside the Drupal theme. And that both worked very well, but then didn't. So here we see what happens, right? Like I was using not just the Anthropic Claude ones, but I'd also use ChatGPT and Gemini, and actually not really Llama. I would use Cursor Composer. Cursor includes a surprisingly capable LLM inside it. And I ended up with lots of Git branches, lots of things that were kind of half completed. I found that the LLMs themselves would forget what they were doing and would, revisit issues that had been solved. And it turned out that managing the flow of the LLMs was about was a big part of the challenge of getting into work. Like I could do small things, any like anything you do in like a single sitting, bang, do it. But once it got bigger than that, once you had to come back to something a day or two later, it was increasingly hard to kind of figure out where that was. Um, and I tried at one point, for example, using Jira and putting things into Jira as if it was a Scrum team, which is sort of foreshadowing where the talk's going to go in 7 or 8 more slides. Um, but that was a little bit of a pain in the neck. And so finally, on one day on LinkedIn, Robert Douglas, who I think a lot of you know, at least those of you who are Drupal folks out there. If I was in the room, I'd say raise your hands, but can't do that so easily here. Robert Douglas came out with a project called Spec Kitty, which is a thing that builds skills inside of Claude. It's a collection of skills inside of Claude that gets you to define the specifications before you start. So I started working with it, and I did one project fairly successfully that I'll refer back to in a little while, I think. And it was neat. It was fun. It does lots of things. I highly encourage you to look at it. At the end of the slide, I'll have a link to it because I honestly believe it's terrific stuff. But for my purposes, this is a little bit much. I do Drupal programming as part of like other stuff that I do, and I'm more of like architect UX guy, and worry about front end and user experience, and that kind of MBA stuff, like customer relationship things. And so Spec Kitty seemed more geared towards people who are coding all day, every day. I might go back to it, but in the meantime, I was like, is there another way to do this? And I learned how to make skills, which are these very, like, if you haven't seen them, I'll show you a few skills before the end of the session. And while they can get complicated, they don't have to be. The skills that I write are so short and so simple. They don't even look like code, right? You look at them and it looks like the README file for a program, but it actually is the program. And we'll look at that one. So here's where I've put you to sleep so far. Wake up, because here's the main product that I'm going to offer as part of this session. The core of the agent management system is a thing that I call Handoff Protocol. And it's literally just 2 pages, right? You can actually see Dolly, when it put together this little graphic, took the README from the handoff repo. And there's only 2 files, ironically, in the repo. There's the README, and then there's the agent's markdown file. And agent's markdown file explains handoffs and docs. And the idea is simple. The idea is that when an agent gets to the end of a session, typically the end of a day, or when you're ready to do a commit, or when you need to turn the computer off or something, something where you feel reasonably that you're not going to that there's going to be a break between now and the next time you look at the program. It writes a little document that's dated so that you know when they happen in the file name, and notes the name of the model that created it, and it, just still in the file name, says one or two words about what it does, and then in the file itself, it gives a little summary of what was accomplished during that session, and it says what was accomplished, what problems were encountered, uh, what things were overcome, and most importantly, where we are now, what the current thing we're wrestling with is, and what we think the next step is, and basically advice for the next person that comes along. And so it's like that bulletin board here, where we have the bulletin board full of like little notes, and it works surprisingly well. I've discovered that when I put this into play, it it keeps the models on track in a way you wouldn't expect a one-page English language script to do. All right, so here's the handoff. Let's take a closer look at how this works, okay? All right, so the initial step is the agent receives an instruction and it works on it for a little while. Then when it finishes it, it writes the handoff file, with the idea of a future agent in mind. The handoff files are saved. They're committed if you're using Git into the handoffs folder, which you see in frame 5 here. Next time an agent comes in, they're able to pick up the handoff. You can see the advantages listed on the bottom here. All right. So now I'm going to show you this particular project was the most successful use of the whole process. This is honestly the closest thing the agent management system has come to being fully used. And that's why we got the black on white sort of technical presentation here. You can see the full line of folders, and one of the things that one of the recent improvements I've made to AMS is the handoffs and various other documents don't have to be in the root folder. You can put them into a dot folder. And more recently I tend to use .ams. But for this project, we use .agent handoff. And that way it's out of the way for like another project where, the handoff system itself is not the product, which in most cases it wouldn't be. So this was a nifty system that was designed to take advantage of a new feature that I discovered in DDEV. It was announced just in February that they had a built-in GUI system. And if I had more time, I'd give you a demo of that. But I'm just going to suggest you go check out the URL for the GitHub repos there. And you can see besides the ordinary handoff and doc directories that are here, there are two more. I've got directories that have files for each of 5 sprints. You can see the handoff files follow those sprints. There's a wireframe file that we use to folder rather that we use to talk back and forth. And then kind of what's interesting of all, and we'll get to this in a slide or two, I made a learnings folder because in order to build this project, which was a DDEV plugin, and a DDEV plugin is generally written in Go, and I've never used Go before. So, besides being able to have the agent write the Go code for me in an attempt to make it not be AI slop, the learnings files describe all the Go techniques in terms that a PHP programmer can understand. So here's the slide I'm most proud of, to be honest, right? So this shows. Oh, but by the way, this is in Hawaii. I thought of this project right before leaving for a little vacation in Hawaii that had been planned for a bit. So since I don't sleep all that much, in my downtime, I put this project together. Much of the work was actually done on the plane to and from Hawaii. Some was done early in the morning or late at night. Some of it was done, sitting on that balcony. There's actually an actual picture of the balcony where we were working here. So in this case, this project showed off really the full Scrum lifestyle. We created stories for all the things that needed to be done. When I say we, I mean me and Opus. We planned the sprints, scheduled the sprint execution, and kind of interestingly, like at this time, I was on still the Claude Pro $20 a month plan, which for a big project like this runs out of tokens pretty soon. So we designed this project. I designed this project. Me and Opus designed this project to use the least expensive agents available. So almost all of this work outside of the initial planning stages was done by Sonnet and Haiku. So I was able to get a lot done with a minimum of cost. So, that was pretty good. As we worked through it, we kind of learned things about it. So, by the time we got to the end of the process, we had distinctly improved the way the way the Scrum system and the handoff system and the other elements of AMS. And largely this was the project where AMS went from just one protocol, the handoff protocol, to being kind of a suite of things. Including the wireframes. You can see here how it progresses through the different complexities of the design. In sprint one, it just drew a frame, which was already kind of cool. I learned how to construct a DDEV terminal user interface. So even without any functionality, that was kind of neat. And then sprint 2, we were able to actually find the file. Sprint 3, we were able to actually load the file. Sprint 4, we were able to actually start doing Xdebug things, and so on and so forth. All right, you guys ready for a demo? We're gonna quit and see what we got. All right. This gives you a little foreshadowing of what we're about to see. Go to GitHub. Go to my repos. And I'll show you the handoff one, because that's really, all this good stuff. So this is the actual repo. As I promised, there's 2 files in it, Cellular Agent Handoff, and it describes how it works. It let's actually go to the actual code and you can see. So this is the thing. And like, to be honest, If somebody had described this to me and said, why don't we do it this way? I said, you're nuts. That'll never work. That'll drift and it'll crash and it'll get messed up. Because here's all it does is it has the instructions here. Is this big enough for people to read, by the way?
Yeah, it looks good.
All right, good. So it describes, you know, itself. You make, the first agent that sees this, that say, go to agent.md and follow the instructions. It creates the automatic startup files for the other agents. And it creates these two directories, handoff and doc. Um, when the session starts, it reads the latest things, tells you how it interprets that, asks you what you want to do. And this might be, you know what? This might be the secret sauce that I never really thought about, because this is the human in the loop part. Because this is the thing where at each session, you get a chance to, and now that I think about it, like I, of course, if it says something ridiculous, if it says something that I don't want to do, I say, no, let's do this instead. But if it says the right thing, then I let it go. So that's honestly, that's the human in the loop. That might be the secret sauce. Um, and then at the end, it creates a handoff. And these are the things that it asks for, and they become headings usually. We'll fire this up and let's give it a full screen. And so this is kind of the interface that I'm heading towards. The thing that unfortunately I skipped before showed how you can actually get the agents to follow Scrum, where where you divide the project. I mean, you don't divide it. You have a powerful model like Claude Opus uh, act as the product owner and split a project into stories, divide them into sprints, and then kind of wander through those sprints. Um, and kind of the next generation that I've done with this is actually personify the Scrum team members and give them names. And I honestly do this. Like over here, uh, the coder having people do coding for things is logical, but uh, in my real world work, I have threads in Claude Code assigned for different tasks. Like, for example, I have a librarian who handles the documentation, and I find that Claude works really powerfully when you split up responsibility between between threads and let them focus on the thing that they're doing, because they fill up with context, right? And so if they're doing huge amounts of coding, they forget sort of the style. So I have a documentarian, a librarian, who maintains the specs, and uh, that way the coders don't have to derive the specs. The librarian reads the handoffs, figures out where things are going. We talk it through as to what the requirements are for the next steps, and then go through it. Um, so that kind of works well here. And let me not run out of time before I get to the good stuff. So the fun thing about this is let's actually do a live demo of using these techniques to fix a problem. So let's say there's a bug in this that we're trying to track down. In fact, it's kind of convenient. There, we've got a bug in our program here. Um, Let me make this less than full width here. And go back here and let's bring up cursor. I use Claude Code in both the command line and preferably the Mac interface, but honestly, cursor is kind of a more friendly environment, I find. Um, so let's bring up here. We're in a um, we're in an Anthropic Claude model, which is kind of the native world for Agent Handoff Protocol. It understands the slash commands. But here you can see I've got a slash command for handoff, and I don't have to write the whole thing, but just for you folks here. This, by the way, is on my GitHub repo. You can install this slash command to handoff. And when you invoke that, if you don't have handoff running, which we don't, notice there's no handoff file here. There's a docs file, but not necessarily a doc file. And was I in plan mode? All right. And you see, this is it going through. It actually downloaded Agent. It created a Claude that links to Agent. It created an empty handoffs folder and an empty docs folder. And now it's going through the project and learning a little bit about it. So it shouldn't take too long for that. Setup complete. There we go. It should ask me now what we want to do. Aaron, do we end at exactly 45 after, or like 3 minutes, or do I have a few more?
I think you have a few more. Yeah.
Okay. So you can see, this is like, I haven't preset this part up. All I did was have the handoff slash command available. So it is putting us into the handoff protocol. So asking me which ones I use. Okay, I use Codex sometimes. I definitely use Cursor. Yeah, let's claim I use that. Apparently I use them all. All right. And by the way, wasn't that wild? Like it gave me a little pop-up list of checkable things. I didn't. You saw the coding for this, right? You saw just English words. I didn't. There's no like huge JavaScript routines to show that, right? So let's see. So it wrote a handoff here. Let's see what it did here, and hopefully it won't do too long here. But just for fun, it already saw ahead the fun thing that I plan to do here. Where we get the stand up going here. But here, let's actually use it. Let's say there's a bug in this program. Find it and get rid of it. Now, ordinarily, I wouldn't be that brash when doing these things. I try to, I do things in a few steps to kind of walk it through. But there it is. It found it. It'll surgically remove all traces of the beetle, the constant, the state, the toggle function, the button, all that stuff. It's going in, rewriting all the JavaScript. By the way, this interface here was developed in combination with the original piece was by Lovable, and the refinements were in Claude slash design, um, which is really kind of nice once you use it. Um, but it says the program's bug free now. So what happens if I refresh it? Does that do it, or no? It's still there, but this is in memory. So let's go back to my little Python web server here and restart it. And I see the bug thing, so that should have gone away. No. Well, tried, but it didn't seem to work. If I had more than negative 1 minute left, I might inquire of it why it didn't fix that. But let's say that's good enough. We'll lie to it because we're in a demo here. Um, all right. So besides this, like honestly, this interface is a work in progress, but it got to the point where it actually could run. I could tell the various pieces. I could address them by name, and they would update like these. This interface is wired into the rest of the system. So as you go through a real project, um, it writes these cards and moves them to different columns and things like that. I mean, it's rigged here because the columns tend to be less interesting in this. They tend to be all like either backlog or finished. Um, but so we have a second handoff here where it said what I did. Tells us in kind of good detail here about how it found, what it did. And I mean, I lied to it and said it worked. It's probably there. It's probably like oh, you know what? I bet it is a caching issue. Where is that? Do I have to do Command Shift R? It was. It did in fact fix the bug. I just hadn't cleared the caches there. All right. Well, that's my time. That wasn't that far from what I was hoping for. I mentioned before that the handoff protocol, the agent management system, all my stuff is kind of low end as these things go. It's designed to be used by sort of part-time programmers, if you will. So here are 3 projects that are much more complete sort of approaches to these things. There's Spec Kitty by Robert Douglas. Zora, which is created by my friend Richard Jaker as a safe alternative to OpenClaw. OpenClaw. And then Dahlia, which is made by Matteo at Lullabot. And so go ahead and check those out. See what you think. All right. And else, am I out of time, Aaron?
I think so. People are saying thank you, no worries. Yeah, a lot of good comments. Thanks for sharing the repo. That was really helpful.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Um, Feel free to communicate with me on any of those channels. Sell ear. I'm on Drupal Slack, and I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there in person at Stanford tomorrow. So if you're around, we'll say hello.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.